All right. And where did Jeff go? We lost Jeff. Okay, well, we can't worry about that right now. We're here on Live Long and Podcast covering Star Trek DS9, Season 1, Episode 5, Babel, which is a very poignant episode. Oh, here comes Jeff back. We lost Jeff at the an inadvertent time. I'm joined here by Jaemeel Robinson coming here to cover us with this episode. And Jeff's back. Yes. Jeff, you got dropped off in the middle of the countdown.
Yeah, I guess so, eh? I don't know why. Do I have to fix my mic?
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm good? Okay.
You're good, Jeff. Jeff, we're covering Star Trek DS9, the 5th episode of Season 1, the 5th episode of the series overall, Babel, which is a quarantine episode. Who would have thought?
I thought it was a Brad Pitt movie.
You're not making any sense.
Round the turbulent quick.
Come on.
Talk about it appropriate.
Major Lark's true pepper.
What?
Got a phaser.
This episode could not have been a more appropriate episode for us to go back and watch, considering the pandemic that's going on right now. I mean, this is like literally maybe the most appropriate episode of television anybody could maybe have watched.
Well, here we are. I thought it was going to be like sort of a mid-season filler episode, and hey, it turned out pretty good. Jaemeel, what did you think of rewatching Babel?
They did everything wrong they could possibly do. I have 1,000,001 ways where they could have solved the issue, but I wasn't on the ship. They should have put me there. I'm scared.
They needed Jaemeel, chief medical assistant to chief medical officer. He couldn't carry your hyper spray.
I don't know who was the most incompetent in this episode. If it was maybe it was Sisko, maybe it was Bashir. But in terms of how they handled this public health crisis, I know better now after having lived through this.
It was O'Brien. O'Brien was the most. He was all pissed off at the beginning, and he wasn't doing his job. He didn't check things out.
Can't have the operations chief sitting around daydreaming when there's work to be done, can we? I'll get right on it.
You get right on it. You get off his case. He's having to fix everyone's thing.
He's all pissed off and surly at the beginning of this, and then I love when he's like incoherent and surly as well. That was very fun.
I was hoping Jody was going to be on this episode because I was hoping that he was going to be like, it's kind of like tech support where he's just like, you freaking guys are after me again to fix this thing, that thing. Leave me alone.
Yes.
Jeff, you don't think it's Odo's fault?
Why do you think it's Odo's fault?
Okay, well, who told Cork where he could possibly use where the replicators that were working were at?
That's true. And he does it in a way like, hey, you could go do this, but if you do this, I will catch you.
Yeah.
And then he does catch him later, but we're not there yet. Yeah, I guess Odo's the one who saves the day as well, sort of, but he doesn't save the day as far as the crisis. He just saves the ship from blowing up the station at the end of the episode. Really kind of Kira saves the day. But it's really not Kira.
Just barely. She basically she just kind of finds the guy who knew the guy who made the virus, and her plan is like, I'll beam him up. I hope he has the answer because I got nothing left, and it pays off. It's a Hail Mary.
It's a huge Hail Mary, and the guy like says to her, he's like this is a Hail Mary at best. I'll try, and then he goes, oh yeah, the doctor was very close. Okay, I'll figure it out.
Don't ask my opinion next time.
There's some good quotes from this episode. I mean, yeah.
Well, hey, I just the
Chief, I thought you were going to fix the replicators.
You're absolutely right, sir. I knew I'd forgotten something.
Yeah, and he's drinking coffee because was it too hot? Is that what it was?
It was 2 hours too cold, and at the end he's like, "O'Brien."
There should have been a laugh track at the end of it.
It's like
Brian.
There was even a freeze frame, like an 80s sitcom right there. Like,
they should have did like a little chime or something, like a DS9 like theme chime or something. That would have been funny.
Hey, reset your mic.
Oh, okay.
You get a bit of a frog in your throat.
How's that? Better?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. You might have aphasia. I might have aphasia.
You're not making any sense.
Round the turbulent quick.
Around the turbulent quick. What did you think of the aphasia talk?
Ooh.
Jaemeel, what did you think?
Well, I actually did a little research. So this episode was co-written by a Sally Caves. Now, Sally Caves is important because she's actually a creator of another language called Tenawant. Tenawant. And she was known as she wrote the Barkley episode, the first Barkley episode, Hollow Pursuits. And she dabbles in like creating languages, so she was like one of the best people to put this together. What I would have loved for everything that people were saying to be figured out how to, like, what they really meant. Like if there was like a code
Subtitles?
like a codex that they can figure out exactly what was being said, because the words that they were saying are substitute for something else.
Right.
Yeah, because they keep saying a lot of the same words. Like they keep saying control and like window and like a certain amount of words. I noticed they kept saying over and over, and I was like, yeah, it must be a language of some sort.
I was like, oh no, we're not going to go down that route. We're going to try and solve that mystery of how to get the cure, as opposed to try to still make the people who are sick usable.
Yeah. You know what was one of my favorite quotes? I don't know if you have it, Dave, with the soundbite, but when Odo goes, Rob's an idiot. He couldn't fix a straw if it was bent.
No, I didn't get that. Yeah. He's like, that was my first clue about you, Cork.
And then Rob is like the genius that comes up with the minefield later on. It's like this genius engineer. It's like,
I don't even know if Rom was even there, because we see that Quark's one of the last few people standing, and he claims it's because he's Ferengi. But it seems like Nog and Rom are not there, or they're not, or they're out for the count with the virus. They're not able to function.
yeah, they should have just like written a thing where Rom and Nog went back to Frognar that weekend or whatever.
They just weren't. They just weren't. They weren't around.
Yeah.
So
Have them
whatever.
run ops with with Quark, and it would have been like so weird. Kira would have at the end called into ops, and all you see on the view screen is Rom, Nog, and Quark kind of just running ops. Be fair.
Yeah.
That would have
The
been funny.
skeleton crew. Yeah, Odo seemed like he was pretty immune to this too, because he never seems like he's in danger of getting sick in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I thought this was a great Quark episode. It kind of helps to really establish who Quark is. A little bit more of the Quark Odo dynamic. Quark's kind of a scoundrel. He's kind of always up to something, and sometimes that causes a riot. Like, just the fact that he's serving drinks from that replicator, and they go, well, now we have a public health crisis because Quark was stealing the replicator from, and all those drinks affected everyone else, and then all of a sudden it went to airborne, and then boom, like where what does he say here?
But that's impossible because all shops and businesses have been closed until further notice.
Except, of course, for essential station operations.
For which this place hardly qualifies.
I don't think they'd agree. This quarantine has everybody on edge, Constable. Would you deprive them of a little harmless diversion?
They'd be safer in their quarters.
This is so, like, you could just so use the metaphor for what's going on right now. The whole episode, I was just going, that's just like right now. That's just like right now. Yeah.
Those are Quark and Odo that's gonna like solve COVID.
And isn't it even best that Quark never gets sick either? He never has to like face consequences.
Yeah.
He actually comes up like golden at the end, technically.
Well, I love how he's harassing people in the episode. He's like, I bet they're just pretending to be sick so they can get to pay their bills. I do have this quote.
You go, oh me!
Yeah, I mean, this is a great Odo and Quark episode. Quark's the kind of the star, but this is the first episode I feel like Odo's Odo. So I think they kind of figured out, okay, this is what we're going to do with Odo for the most part. We're going to make him this surly security officer that him and Quark are like the two foes of each other. And this episode, which you wouldn't think a pandemic episode would be the episode where that would, show it off, but it does.
So going back to what we talked about 2 episodes ago, once again, if we had Quark as the instead of Garrick, we had Cork there. This episode would seem really weird to have like Cork being like the comedy foil to Odo in this episode, and then having him being such a nefarious scoundrel in the second episode. That's why I felt, once again, Garrick fit that mold, and then we have Cork, who is also like a scoundrel but a lovable one.
Right. Yeah, like I just like he doesn't do anything in this episode that's unforgivable. You're like, he's just trying to hustle some work. His restaurant's not doing well. He's being force fed these this oatmeal by this stew by this criminal guy. You know, and I like how Odo just lets him get a few extra shots in before he stops him, like we were talking about earlier. But
he's like force feeding him the soup that sucks. And it's pretty funny.
And then Odo's like, "Stop it." Lets him feed him again. Okay, he's had enough.
He's like, okay, that's it. Okay, you get one. You'll get one more. I get it. The stew sucks. You know, I'd be mad too. So he's Quark. Just let him. Yeah, that's the whole thing about Odo. That's great. Is he just loves to see Quark suffer. Like everybody in this episode, everybody in the principal cast, I think really gets a chance to shine a little bit in this episode, because I kind of like that. Oh, it's an OBrien episode. It's OBrien not be able to get things fixed, and he's always like stressed out. But no, it's kind of an Odo and Quark kind of episode, and it's kind of also a little bit of there's just a quick moment, or a couple moments between Ben Sisko and Jake Sisko, father son, that kind of establishes them a little bit more, because they don't always have a lot to do in every episode. But he has just kind of this scene of concern. Kira comes through and has to save the day. Odo has also other things to do, where he has to kind of run ops and help run the station and do, and Bashir, I guess as far as Bashir up until this point, it's the best he's done, even though I think we can criticize how he's handled the pandemic. He's no who's our chief health officer, Dr. Tam. He's not up to her standard.
Would Beverly Crusher have done better? Though, like,
I think so. I think we would see more. Crusher would have handled this better than.
Crusher would have crushed it.
Yeah, she would have crushed it.
She would have crushed
it.
And Bashir bashed it all up.
He bashed it up. He bunked it.
You know what I noticed in the credits? I don't know if it was the same with the other episodes, but Bashir's name, like normally it's Alexander Sadig, but in this episode it was Sadig El Fadir or something.
It's not just this episode. It's like the first 3 seasons.
Is it? And then they change it?
Yeah, so his name is like Sadig El Fidel El something else, something like it goes on and on and on. Like it's like he's Middle Eastern.
Right.
And eventually he just changed it to become Alexander Sadig as like a stage name, I think, which was easier for him.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. He has like 12 names.
Yeah.
Sadig El Tahir El Fadir El Sadig Abraham Muhammad Aham Adel Karim El Mahdi. Oh my God. It's a lot of names.
The right combination, they get him more roles.
He's from Sudan.
It means like son of. So it's like every one of his grandfathers going back like however many names you see.
Wow.
He's from like a long lineage of L people. So L something or other.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had that many names. I just thought his name was Alexander Sadig.
Well, it is
When
now.
you want to introduce him, if you go to a convention, they're like, go down the list, like let it down. That's an intro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like Daenerys Targaryen, the unburnt, the breaker of chains. Here comes Alexander Sadig El Fadil El Bashir.
He was married to Nana Visitor. I didn't know that either.
Wow.
Yeah, they were an item for a bit. They have a kid together, who I would imagine is all grown up by now. I haven't looked that up ever, but
and they never decided to put Bashir and Kira as a couple on the show.
Well, later on, when Kira inherits the baby from the O'Briens, and she says to Bashir, "This is all your fault." That was a bit of an in joke because he did get her pregnant.
Right.
And they had to write the pregnancy into the story.
Yeah. This episode also, the first kind of Kira joking with O'Brien, and you have that that dry humor that doesn't land that Kira gives, and she kind of smiles. That's the first Kira moment that I like. I feel like, oh yeah, that's totally Kira from like latter seasons when she's a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah.
I'm like that moment there really encapsulates her, and I'm like, oh, I see you there.
Yeah, I'd say in a lot of ways, this episode kind of establishes how this cast wants to sort of relate to each other, right? Like, and how they kind of see each other. So in the most like basic sense of who their archetypes are and who their characters are, they all kind of play their roles pretty well.
I would say the one character that doesn't get a lot in this episode is Dax. She's just kind of along for the ride in this episode.
She gets one moment.
Yeah,
She gets, the one moment.
Yeah, it's like I never I don't remember the attention being a woman, right? All the guys checking her out as she's walking with Kira.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
she takes Cork on his offer for the pudding.
right.
Beanie and spice pudding.
She's like, I haven't been a woman for 80 years or something. She says something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think very quickly that whole moment establishes that Dax and Kira are becoming friends. They're starting to bond, maybe. They also like Dax is a bit more adventurous, willing to hang out with Cork, whereas Kira never would. That's not her style. So, just in a couple lines of dialogue and a quick scene, they kind of really set up a lot of the things about who those characters are and will continue to be.
When O'Brien first starts speaking gibberish, like I love what he writes down on his little pad. It says, "Flame the dark true salt way link, complete strike limits victory, frosted wake simple hesitation."
Mm-hmm.
Major Lark's true pepper.
What?
Major Lark's true pepper.
Major Lark's true pepper.
That's someone's password, I bet you.
If it's not, it should be. I mean, I might change all my passwords to that.
But they're everybody here.
Nobody will ever guess that.
Mm-hmm. I also like how O'Brien's always getting in trouble for his not getting the replicators fixed, right? Where we heard earlier with Cisco's like,
Chief, I thought you were going to fix the replicators.
And when I broke for a quick bite to eat, we had a replicator failure.
I'll have to talk to Chief O'Brien about these replicators.
I do find it interesting that I think it's Kira says that all the food on the station is replicated.
all of it.
I find that very interesting because, like in Voyager, not all the food is not replicated. Like, 'cause I get it because they're strapped, but like, it's you think on a space station with all these aliens, they'd be bringing food in and out, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Like, it's like they don't allow it. It's like a security thing.
Voyager does it because they kind of have to, because they have to kind of conserve resources and energy. Like at DS9, you would imagine if you're especially if you're planted in one place and you have your setup there, that you would have some kind of like a greenhouse or some kind of way to grow things. But
wouldn't it make sense that you had some kind of, I don't know, botanist to take care of like flowers and other type of greenery?
If only there was one on the station.
She doesn't have time for that. Can't go.
She's a school teacher, man. She's
teach Nog and Jake what's what.
She's going for lunch at the Replimat, she's at recess and stuff.
It goes back to O'Brien's fault. She should have become a...
It's always O'Brien's fault.
Everything in this show is O'Brien's fault.
O'Brien!
Oh, you're absolutely right, sir. I knew I'd forgotten something. Can't have the operations chief sitting around daydreaming when there's work to be done, can we? Oh, I'll get right on it.
At the end of that is so good.
I would have written him up for insubordination. I'd be like, O'Brien!
Sarcasm is not necessary, dude.
Could you imagine if it was just like always like the whole series had been about Cisco yelling at O'Brien about not having the replicator fixed, his coffee being too hot or too cold or something like that?
That's the actual ending of the series, is like one last time from the grave.
I thought Chief was going to fix these replicators.
There is a lot of going forward, O'Brien like cursing the station because it's Cardassian and like just like all this stuff, right? Like he's so like they do kind of continue that joke, but like maybe not about the replicators.
Yeah, O'Brien must suffer. I think that was sort of written into the show's like Bible, right?
Right.
Like, that was sort of what they wanted. He's sort of the everyman. He's like he's the only like enlisted person, maybe other than Odo. He's just the every guy. You're supposed to relate to him the best.
Which I would say I do. I like
Yeah.
O'Brien.
And I guess to our earlier question, why don't they have like something like a hydroponics or some kind of things to grow? I guess it's maybe just the Cardassians didn't maybe do that in space. I guess that's an easy like throwaway thing. You say, the Cardassians didn't do that stuff. They didn't grow stuff. They were just replicators only.
Wouldn't they have the space though somewhere in the station to do something? Don't they have cargo bays and like don't they?
Sure, it's supposed to be a huge station. We never really get to see much of it. Like
No, the hallways. I guess they show us.
They show us a couple. They show us a couple of the quarters. They show us the promenade's the biggest set, but like you never see much of the rest of the station. A couple of little bits in here and there, but it's way bigger than like the Enterprise. We see it, right?
So wait, is my understanding of the space station maybe it's just a stupid question, but the promenade is like the entire like a part of the ring, right? It's the main part of the ring.
You can see it right in between you and me, Jaemeel. If you look at, you see where all those little like windows are. That's the promenade.
Yeah, like sort of. So like that top section is like ops, and then right below that is the promenade.
So my understanding is like think of it like a mall, right? They could have broken down a couple of shops, which they say a bunch of them are empty because people have not come back, and they could have made it into a grotto. I like keep saying that, a grotto where they could have had plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like, I imagine there's some form of trade going through there too, and maybe there's I don't know how the economics of Deep Space Nine work. Babylon 5 did a better job of explaining that kind of stuff, honestly. So plugs to Babylon 5.
Well, that's I mean, because the Federation doesn't use money, but like the Ferengi do. So
the Bajorans do.
The Bajorans do? Okay. And what about the Cardassians? Do they use money?
Yeah.
All right. So there's like this weird thing where it's like, well, like Roddenberry set up this whole situation where the Federation doesn't have money, yet now they write into all these characters that do. Like, do the Klingons have money?
Klingons have money.
So that's, it's very strange. So how does the Federation pay for things?
They trade for things. Like there's a couple books about this. There's about the economics of Star Trek and how things work, and how even in a society that has no money, you still have a level of scarcity, because while everybody has like food and shelter, maybe, and a job, even there's still only one Mona Lisa. There's still only one of this or that, or there's one beach house in Miami at this particular view. So there's still like a sense of money in a way. The idea that we see here, that Kirk and other characters have talked about buying houses, owning things. There's still property to an extent, but not like pure like money in like a pure capitalist way.
Well, like Cisco's father runs a restaurant. Does he make money running this restaurant, or
No,
really?
No, he doesn't. No one has to pay for it.
Why is Cisco always like, "How's the restaurant doing?"
I guess it's just you just want people to come in and want food.
Okay, I mean,
because that's like that. Because if you want to be if you want to run a restaurant, you do that because you love running a restaurant, not because I just kind of fell into this. This is my lot in life. I have to run a restaurant. If that's not what you want to do.
There's no tipping system.
No tips. I imagine there's gifts. You might say like, "Oh, I come over here every Friday night for dinner. I'm gonna bring Mr. Cisco. I forget what his name is. I'm gonna bring him like a bottle of wine or whatever. Like whatever's gonna sort of be a nice thing to do for him." I don't know. It's Star Trek, so it doesn't really exist. But there are a couple like books about how the economics of even a society like that would have to interact with other cultures that do use money, and there would be a lot of trade involved.
Okay. So, is there rent to be on the promenade?
Yes, I think there is. Yeah.
So who's collecting that, or who's managing that?
I imagine it's Kira.
that seems so like trivial for Kira to be overseeing that. Like, does she come to like some place of business and go, "You're behind on your rent. Get out. I'm gonna evict you."
Yeah, like they never show anything like that. Like honestly, like this is another thing I thought Babylon 5 did better. Babylon 5 was on at the same time. This came up on the show. Like, hey, you can't afford these quarters anymore. You're not making enough money. You have to go here, or your business, or people would get to the space station in that show and couldn't afford to get home, and then they become homeless on a space station, and what that's like, and how and what their lives are like. So. Deep Space Nine, Star Trek universe was never went that dark. Like they always presented that their characters lived in a sense of like it was at least civilized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna start with this episode breakdown, even though we talked about this episode.
Yeah.
Already.
Well, first of all,
Doctor, who created this virus?
The Bajoran side.
the Bajorans created the virus, Jeff.
I mean, that is an interesting development because immediately, like, Kira and Cisco are in their quarters and they're talking about like the device that she finds, and she's like, "It's the Cardassians," and I'm just like, "Oh, Kira, jump into conclusions again." And it is
thinking it through.
And the mat has different conclusions that she can jump to, and all the spaces on the map say, it's the Cardassians, and she just jumps to that conclusion each time.
Yes. Oh, your niece is
Yeah.
making a cameo. Yeah.
She
Hey,
put
Lo.
on recording, so she always shows up. Yes, you did. Okay. I wasn't sleeping. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oh, my
Hello.
Hey,
Hey.
Okay.
wants to be a star.
Let's be a star. Get her into Star Trek yet?
No, I want her to like it. It's too early.
It's too early.
Too early. Don't push it too early. You gotta
Yeah.
wait for the right time. Could be a couple years.
I was about her age at one point, and Dave was trying to push Star Trek on me, and I was like, "No."
Yeah, you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready.
I hope she grows out of it into Star Trek and other things.
Good,
Yeah.
good. You're bound to rub off on her. Don't worry.
Around 12 or 13, that's the time to get into it, I think.
I'm winning. I'm gonna think Star Trek into her so bad.
Yeah.
She's not gonna be a Star. She's gonna like spit whenever Star Wars is mentioned.
That's
Exactly. Great history.
That's the gospel of this podcast because Star Wars is inferior to Star Trek.
Correct.
I mean, it's not really even close.
Like, I don't hate Star Wars.
No.
Star Wars is a nice thing. You know,
That's nice.
distraction.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, it's like a laser pointer where a cat's like going
Yeah.
after it. That's
Right.
Star Wars. You know?
Yeah, you're like it's a cat with a laser pointer.
And
That's what Star Wars is.
it's pretty straightforward and easy for me to like debate it. It's like, okay, how many great Star Wars movies are there? 3?
2.
Maybe
3.
2. Maybe 3 at the most.
We're using the word great. 2.
Okay, there you go. 2. How many great Star Trek movies are there?
4.
At least 4. We've been doing the rewatch of the Star Trek movies. I'd say we think at least 3 of them are great.
There you go. And then
And we're doing Generations next. I'm kind of curious to see how we think that one went overall, but
you haven't even gotten to the TV show comparison yet, so like it wins right there.
Yeah, like it's Star Wars is fun. It's kind of like it's like watching a rave or something, it's just kind of mindless nonsense. But
how many raves do you watch, Dave?
Not many.
Not many.
That was the metaphor I would have went with, but I guess it's appropriate. I mean,
Star Wars.
I can't say it's wrong. So.
no.
Although I don't know if it's the first thing that's.
I'm not gonna fight you on it. I mean, I mean, we're getting a little off track here, but at the same time, I mean, we've already talked about most of this episode. So
yeah, well, hey, we talked about the Bajorans. Okay, planted this thing on the space station 18 years ago. So the space station is 18 years old at this point.
yeah, that was the new development for me. I thought the space station was much older than that.
Me too.
Yeah, it did seem more lived in.
And it said it was also a mining space station, right? I think that's been said before, but what did it mine?
Didn't the moon?
There was some kind of ore on Bajor that they used to mine because it was an orbit of Bajor originally, right? And then they moved it.
So wait, it was there for 18 years, and they just never fixed that replicator. That specific replicator that it was attached to.
That's right.
Yeah, even according to this, there's been some like conflicting information about when Deep Space Nine was built because it's saying that like the space station was built between 2346 and 2351, which would have been roughly 18 years to like 26 years before this. So yeah, it is an older station. It's an old thing. They can't grow their vegetables here. It's replicators only. Everyone's getting sick, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of strange, like Jaemeel was saying, like that this is the time that this device activates after 18 years, like especially if it was put in right when the station was built, which is kind of strange too, that they wrote that into maybe they just wrote that into the script just to tell you how old the station was.
Not realizing what holes they kind of create in that story.
Yeah. Because everything's like setting it up, and this is only the 4th episode or the 5th episode. I mean, it's very confusing in this first season when you're talking about the number of episodes. It's just Babel, I guess we should just call each episode their name.
Can we just assume that they never actually connected it completely, and then when O'Brien went to fix it, and he bypassed something, he bypassed it into it to make it work properly?
Yeah, I'd say so. Maybe it was broken and O'Brien fixed it by accident because he's that good.
I think that's what happened. Yeah, because because when he like first is like using his little wand thing, and then he like puts the panel back on, which took him a while, by the way, to get that panel back on.
Like almost an uncomfortable amount of time where you're like, do it again, O'Brien, or do it again, Cole Meany, do the take again and get that on.
It's like, no, I'm doing it once. We're gonna take this.
He was probably so pissed off because he had to keep bending down into that alcove, and like his neck hurt by doing it by like the 3rd or 4th time. He was like, "Fuck it, just wrap it." That's probably what he said.
Yeah. So he puts it on. He's like, "Brr," and like he's trying to get it going, and then it finally goes. But we see that the little device goes off. So you're like, "Oh, it's some kind of I think. Oh, we got some comment. We got a comment here. It's always nice to get a comment. This is from Jane Mater. Unsure if she's related or not. She could be. The restaurant is his hobby, like your podcast, for no money. Jane, we're building this. We're building this up for money.
The merch is coming. The merch money.
Yeah, it's just this is you can't build it in a day. Like just like the restaurant, you can't. The souffle will either rise or it won't. Just like Ben Sisko's daddy says.
Jane, gold, you owe me.
Yes.
You gold owe me.
Great. Oh my gosh, I love this episode. It's so good.
It's a great
Nobody's
episode.
gonna put the bag on me anymore.
Is that Kirk?
Yeah.
This episode could have used a little Kirk. I mean, was that ridiculous?
That being said, like how many aliens he's gonna punch in the face this episode, though?
Just the guy at the bar that's feeding Cork the soup. That'd be about the only guy. Or the Bajoran that Kira goes and
the
gets.
dude that was like, I'm gonna have to be more than warp 1 to deliver my cargo before it spoils.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that guy because he shows up right at the beginning, like annoyed alien freighter captain.
Yeah, he wants to leave, and it's just
he's like he shows up again. Mr. O'Brien, I've been waiting to fix my ship. I've been waiting. Brian's like, I'm up to my, I can't even get these guys out of the airlock. They've been stuck in an airlock for hours. I can't even get them out. And this guy's on my case. And then O'Brien, and then Sisko wants me to fix the replicators. He's coffee's too hot or too cold. Oh, I just can't have the chief of O'Brien daydreaming, as he would say. And then that guy shows up. He doesn't want to get sick. He tries to leave, and he nearly kills everybody. Right?
Yes. So once again, sounds perfectly accurate to modern times in our situation.
Yeah, just somebody who's just like won't listen to reason, won't go with the flow. Just like, let's be sensible, let's be reasonable about things. We can figure this out together. And people are like, no, I can't take it anymore. They just like throw
I'm
things
not
up.
gonna wear a mask. This is against my freedom, my personal freedom.
Yeah, well, if given the chance, people or an alien or whatever will choose self-preservation over helping the the masses out. If it's that's individuals. They always often say are smarter than the whole, but sometimes it only takes one individual to screw everything up. And that's kind of what's happening, today and in this episode. And this episode is so appropriate. You're right, Jaemeel. Like. It's just like what is going on with society right now, and it's just so many parallels. It's like it's amazing how prophetic this episode is.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Was this really a promotion for O'Brien? Like, did he really get promoted here to come and run the operations here, or did he have a pretty good gig on the Enterprise?
Well, he talks about he should have went to a freighter instead.
He says that here. Should have taken a promotion to a freighter.
So was it really he doesn't have like a official rank, a Starfleet rank. Like
He's an enlisted rank, right? He's a chief petty officer. Yeah.
So did he was he offered this as Picard's like, hey, you want to do this? You want to still do this? Did he want to pursue a career with Starfleet?
I guess you can only run that transporter so many times, right? Like you can just do this all day, up and down on the panel, right? And
do you think they kind of wrote that for Cole Meany? Because Cole Meany was probably the biggest actor, I would say, out of all these actors at the time of this, especially first season. I mean, he'd been in a lot of movies. I think he was in Dire 2. He was in what was that one with Steven Seagal? He was in that one too. He
Under Siege.
Under Siege. Like he was probably the guy that had been in the most movies and had the biggest movie career. And I don't know. I always felt like at the back of my mind watching, like I was like they kind of were writing like an opportunity to write him out of the show at some point because. Like what if he got like a big role? And I always thought that was probably in the back of Cole Meany's mind. Was if I want to leave this show, I want the ability to do that. And if you make me like a chief petty officer, you can replace me pretty easily. I'm not. He's not the most important character.
He stuck with it, man. The entire series.
He did.
Yeah,
man. I'd say René Auberjonois was probably the other most well-known actor at the time. But certainly by this Star Trek audience, it was called Meany.
Definitely. So, Jeff, what would you have done to solve this issue, this conflict during this episode? What would you have done? What was your plan? Did you have a plan?
If it was me,
yeah,
I would have contacted Bajor and brought in as many doctors as I could have or scientists. Cisco never seems to think that way. Like that's ends up what saves their day is they go get a scientist or a doctor to finish Bashir's formula or whatever. But if he had done that earlier, he would have more time too, because it seemed to be like a time delay on these people. So like the more people, the more scientists, I think that would have been he would have been better. So that's what I would have did.
That's good. I like that.
What about you?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Well, I would institute face masks or some kind of
space mask.
Face mask. Put people in stasis of some sort, right? Because once again, time was a factor, and it was obviously spreading. So, we needed bodies that could run after a period of time when people became inaccessible, or they were like too medically gone to be of assistance. So if you put people away in quarantine or in stasis, you can break that seal so that you have a prolonged period of time where you can continue to work. Plus, I do like your idea with contacting Bajor. You have an entire planet worth of resources, and you're like, no, I'm not going to use it. Everyone on the ship, that's the only people that we're going to talk about. I understand making sure that we're not spreading it to Bajor, but you can still use them. You can still contact them. They have interest in your station and the people on it. So you're not like on your own as well.
Right, because the one point where Kira like says I have to go to Bajor, and like Cisco's like I can't risk you going to Bajor, but they could ask people to come from Bajor to the station and say, hey, there's a risk.
And like daycare stuff. Like did spacesuits like they have spacesuits? They couldn't use spacesuits to like not like interact with the air. Right.
Yeah. Well, they could have put everyone in their quarters and could have put them in like they have force fields too, right? they can definitely cordon people off.
It just seems like no, we're just gonna roll the dice and this is how it's gonna be.
I got the impression that once Bashir figured out that it was an airborne thing, I think he says like everybody on the station is infected. So I think like the idea is like there's no point to do that because everybody's infected anyway. So like. That's how I took it, and so like
the guys in the airlock could have saved everyone.
Yeah,
because they're still stuck there.
That guy in the airlock was actually better off because he was not at risk to the virus.
Keep me in.
Yeah.
Did you have a plan, Dave?
I did. I was getting something for you guys because I was like, I can't not have this in the episode. Un momento. Just 1 second.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I got it. Okay. Boom.
Rom's an idiot. He couldn't fix a straw if it was bent.
I love that. And
I have to have that forever. So
because at the time, Rom is such an idiot.
Yeah.
Later on, he's like they make him this genius. Which I mean, we talked about this last week, but you talk about like a character development of anything. It was definitely Rom. He goes from this idiot to complete like super genius engineer. He's like they make him smarter than O'Brien. I feel like later on in the series,
a little bit, yeah, or equally as smart.
Yeah,
right. But like, well, Rom was at least smart enough to put Nog in the school.
Yeah.
Cisco compliments O'Brien for Kiko or being such a Keiko. I always say her name wrong.
I love
Kiko.
it.
Kiko.
Jeff, keep being you.
Love it. So Kiko, he compliments her for being such a good teacher to Jake. It's like, how long has she been teaching Jake? Like, how long has it been since the last episode? Like, I'm not sure. It seems like probably like a month. Like, you know.
Or
yeah, I think you can roughly estimate that every episode is every 2 weeks or so, or because there's 22 episodes in a season, and every season's roughly about a year in the span of Star Trek. So,
approximately.
Yeah, so it's roughly every episode we kind of catch up with them. It's been about a week or two.
26-hour days though, Dave. They get that extra 2 hours.
Yeah, they got that extra couple hours a week. So it's different. That's assuming they have 7 days a week, which we can't even be sure of that. So.
No, it could be 9 days a week. It could be like Tony on Survivor.
I'm off duty, man. I'm off duty.
9 days a week. Yeah,
I work 5 days a week, so
the days I'm off don't count. That's the best. Tony and Jeremy.
Love it.
So we talked about the annoyed alien freighter captain who nearly blew up the whole ship. There was the turnaround there. What else is there to cover in this episode other than I guess maybe Kira's plan, which we did kind of cover, which was kind of like a Hail Mary move, right?
Or gambit. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that Cisco was just like completely like delegating that maybe a little too hard, right? Because he's like commander of the station. He's like, Kira, you're the only one who's going to be able to figure out which crazy Bajoran cooked up this virus 18 years ago. If you can't figure it out, no one can. And so he just kind of saddles her with the whole plan.
Why didn't Kira bring the medical data with her?
Yeah, like there's just like there wasn't much of a conversation. Like, she kind of walks up and Cisco knows right away. He's like, "You want to go? You can't go anywhere. We're in a quarantine. I'm not really sure what I should be doing, but I don't think I should let you go." And she's like, well, I can't do anything from here, so you better let me go. He's like, I guess. All right. And
Odo's the one that says, you better let her go. She's our only chance.
But like, she could have taken the medical data, right? Once he's on the ship, like, we don't know how many people died, and I have to assume that someone must have died.
Well, but wasn't Brian patient 0? And
Brian's patient 0, right?
Was he?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, he drank from the replicator, but the replicator didn't start working until after he finished his what, double sweet tea or coffee
Black
that
coffee,
he drank.
yeah. Yep.
Because that's when the virus got created, I guess.
Yeah, like the light goes on the machine, like on when it goes into the panel, like before it fades to the commercial, you see the machine turn on, like the actual machine in the panel turns on. So technically, was he the first person to have it, or he's the first person that we were aware of it?
At least they show. But yeah, it's way after he orders that coffee double sweet, and he's just like, I think that's when he gets infected with it.
But the machine turns on after that, though.
You're right, it does.
So like, was it like, let's say he fixed that that panel, and then he moves to another panel, and all the systems are interconnected. He would have fixed another panel, ordered something to test it, and then he would have had it then. That's my reasoning.
I think he's also the first one to show symptoms, and he's also the first one to get that fever that apparently is going to kill him, because this virus was going to wipe everybody out in like the next 12 hours, which they kind of like. They're pretty cool about, all things considered. Like they're faced with imminent death, wiping everyone out on the station. But it's Star Trek, this kind of stuff happens, and so to be expected.
Stasis. Everyone in stasis.
Well, what do we think? Yeah.
Like, how would they do that stasis thing though, Jaemeel? Would they have to have like stasis pods or whatever, or like wouldn't they have to already have that on the station?
Wouldn't they have something like in the medical bay, even if it was just one person? Like, OBrien should have been put in stasis like from the get-go.
That's a good point. I mean, they never really show us anything like stasis, do they? In Star Trek, do they?
There was that episode of Voyager where they kind of put the whole crew to sleep for like a month.
Right.
Where it was only 7 and 9 of the Doctor were awake, and then I don't know. It's not a great episode, but it's an example of stasis, putting people into stasis.
But that was a starship, so they might have something like that there. This is a Cardassian space station, so they wouldn't have a luxury as that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, that's never quite utilized.
Once Bashir figures out it's a virus, though, he shouldn't be calling down the guy commanding the station to come down and like look at him right in his face. Like they wouldn't do that like with the president. They wouldn't be like, President, come over here, come check out this COVID patient. Like that wouldn't happen.
It seems like the first thing you'd actually want to do is maybe call for backup, like another ship, or even from Bajor.
Subspace message to Starfleet saying that you have this new biological, virus that is infecting. We have a patient here. We don't understand it. Can you please send help?
Yeah, because I get like the whole like you don't want to infect other people, but you're in space. I don't think that you being in a ship is going to infect the other ship.
There has to be like some kind of medical organization in Starfleet, or
there's got to be like a CDC of Starfleet, right? The Center for Infectious Starfleet Diseases, and they're going to take this down. And maybe Beverly Crusher's going to show up. She's going to crush her this whole thing.
Yeah,
she's going to be teamed up with Pulaski.
So are we calling the replicators like because we see it consistently serve tea and liquids, that it's like a wet market of some sort?
I don't want to go.
Or ice is like it was created in a lab.
Yeah.
yeah, perhaps. Hold on, we're bringing in an image.
So
what's this?
So this image here is from Bashir. On the left is actually what he was working on, and then after it changes, after he gets the virus, it changes on the right and becomes gibberish.
But it's actual English words. They just don't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the first time it says mode DNA sequence single base res viral antidote analysis sample 370. So he's coming up with an antidote, protein sheath degradation, all these different percentages. Surface protein chain of antidote failed to find confirmation on bioprotein sheath. Muted genetic adaptability suspected. So, I guess it's suspected that they can come up with an antidote, which is good. Then it just turns into APS dismount member print, excuse color away, right 9049C, contact mind straightened, unsaid negligent, gold window. Hinder squad performance, then loud bush. It went gray relish, equal hook, growl rope, honeymoon, dolphin, sky drum.
Major Lark's True Pepper.
What?
So someone had to write that out. That's such a great job.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah, some funny stuff. I mean, we can't talk about the kind of parallels here with today. I mean, this is kind of other than like the episode. I think we can kind of get onto that a little bit. Dave, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I guess they don't even have much. It's not like they're dealing like we're dealing with it. We're sitting here for 8-9 weeks. We've been in quarantine, or self-isolated in some form, and and they were dealing with maybe for a couple hours. Yeah, it was more life-threatening for sure. So I guess they have a bit of the moral high ground there. But I guess the whole thing is they just like that. It gives us an appreciation for how much more equipped we are now. How we think about these things, because we're sitting here going, Cisco and Bashir are running these like dopes. They don't know how to handle this thing at all. They're not quarantining properly. They're not observing proper social distancing measures. They're not using force fields and compartmentalizing people like they could. So I think that they're sort of unqualified, or especially in Bashir's case, he seems like he's not prepared for a situation like this at all. I'm questioning if he's a good doctor.
Well, neither is the command structure. Doesn't seem to be very prepared either, which is also very, comparable to today. I mean, the governments of today, of pretty much every country, was not prepared enough for what's going on with COVID. I mean, it's a shame we don't have a name for this disease. It just seems to be aphasia. But for this aphasia, they don't seem prepared at all either. They're like, oh fuck, this sucks. This is gonna be bad. People are gonna start dying in 12 hours.
Doesn't
So
it feel like they just kind of assume they're gonna solve whatever new virus comes up? Like, oh, we'll figure it out in the course of, before it becomes a major issue. They don't seem very proactive at all.
yeah, they're just kind of hoping the doctor figures it out with the computer, which is kind of what we're doing right now today. We're just hoping that the vaccine gets developed by doctors and we have no control over it whatsoever.
Doctor, save us.
The doctors will figure it out. We just keep on.
As long as we just keep watching Star Trek alone in our quarantine quarters, then eventually a vaccine will come out, and then we'll get back. We'll get to go to a basketball game again. That's kind of what's going on right now.
That hurts talking about it today, man.
Oh, did you watch any of The Last Dance last night?
Yeah.
It's been good.
Today's the anniversary of the shot.
Yes, today. Yep. Yeah. It actually probably would have happened right about in about a half an hour.
Yeah.
That probably would have happened a year ago.
The one that bounced off the rim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gotta hop on Twitter and start.
Get over there. Well, I think we've squeezed everything we can out of this episode. I'd say.
See, no more juice. Squeezed all the juice.
Squeezed all the juice. I don't know what else there is to say.
Can't have the operations chief sitting around daydreaming when there's work to be done, can we? I'll get right on it.
Ho.
Okay.
Thanks, Jaemeel. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Dave, thanks for kind of
I just want to look ahead. What is the episode after this? I guess it's going to be season 1, right? So
Yes. Episode 6.
Episode 6, which is called Captive Pursuit. Oh, I need to get you guys ratings for this, by the way.
Oh.
Okay.
This is gonna be tough because I really like this episode a lot.
Here, let me get that in here. Share.
In the meantime, while you're putting it together, Jeff, what do you think that Cork got as his reward for kind of saving the day?
Nothing.
Absolutely. Probably got a fine from Odo.
They probably got really mad at him for energizing Odo into a situation where he could die too.
So, Jaemeel, could you give me your rating for this episode, please?
Oh, jeez. God, I really liked it a lot. Can I say, let's say a 7.5?
All right, and Jeff?
I would give this one an 8.5.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
So, yeah, and so far that's very generous from Jaemeel because his average is 6.3. He's not likely to give you a high rating. So yeah, this is maybe one of the best episodes we've watched so far. So that's even averaging in the IMDb score, it's certainly better than the last couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to a captive pursuit.
I don't know. I think The Search is going to get like a 9 for me. I haven't watched it again. Right, I haven't watched it since it originally aired, but I love that episode. The Search.
Is that in season 1?
That is, I believe, season.
Are you talking about the one with Tosk?
It's the Defiant. When they get to Defiant.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that's in season 3.
The premiere, it's the premiere episode, I believe.
Yeah. The next one. The next one is kind of like almost a hunter episode where he's this like guy named Tosk and he's being chased from the Gamma Quadrant. We'll get into it next week. I'm looking forward to it though. So, and if anybody out there, make sure to check out tomorrow Survivor finale, Winners at War. Who will win? Who will be the greatest survivor of them all? Might be our only show. So, for a while in the reality TV zone because it doesn't look like Big Brother's coming back. So, So anyway, check that out tomorrow night on Super Mater Brothers podcast channel. And also come back here for Friday when we're going to be talking about the original series with our dad, talking about, an old original series episode. I can't remember which one. Oh, yeah, we're doing the one from the first season, I think. The Corbomite maneuver. That's the one we're doing. Because Dad thinks that guy looks like Mitch McConnell. So that's why we're going to be doing that one. So, so check that out and come back next week. Tuesday, we'll be talking Captain Pursuit. I'm Dave Mater, Jeff Mater, and Jaemeel Robinson signing off. Have a great night.